Nobody's talking about Lehman. We're talking about the moment. It's this fiction from 10 years ago. You did not live it at that moment. You were there before. Give us a window into the Lehman distinction with Richard Fuld. What made Lehman different at that time? I think we have an understanding of the Bear Stearns distinction, but Lehman's a mystery. What was Lehman like in 05, 06, 07, and on to the crisis?
Oh, remember, Lehman was one of the major players in the mortgage market.
You wanted to work there.
Well, of course.
No, I mean, everyone wanted to work there.
Right,
it was
exactly.
prestigious.
In my case, I was treasurer of Morgan Stanley, and I could become the CFO of Lehman. It seemed like a wonderful, wonderful move. The issue was Lehman was this marvelous mortgage machine. Now, it was also a fixed income power around the world, right? Now, we know that one of the issues with fixed income is it's not liquid, right? The market is inherently not liquid, which means the market makers have to provide the capital. So Lehman was more leveraged than the rest. Lehman relied on a lot of short-term funding. And by the way, the rest of the street believed that repo, or the secured financing, was rock solid, would never go away. And, of course, when the fire started in mortgages, it spread elsewhere. Well, what are the firms that you're going to hit first? Right. You're going to hit the mortgage players, and those were Bear and Lehman. In the case of, as we were getting to the end there, Lehman made the bet in 2007. Remember, the crisis sort of...
What was the bet they made?
They made a bet that this liquidity event, the mortgage market falling, was an opportunity. And you actually see, if you track, that their balance sheet rises through the beginning of 2008. Exactly. By the way, that would work 9 times out of 10 in a liquidity event. If you have enough liquidity, you could live through it. You'd make money. Okay. They didn't.
But this is important. The fancy guys like you escaped the wrath. Mr. Fuld, I saw, I think, 10 days before the collapse. He was exhausted, yes. But you know what? Life went on. The image we have are those backs against the glass wall as they told the kids goodbye. And then we had the idea of the kids walking out with one cardboard box. I mean, that's the video media images we have today. Are those kids going to walk out of a bank again like that? Are we going to move on to another Lehman where the fancy people move on, but the kids can't? They're destroyed?
Well, I don't think the kids were destroyed. Lehman was a wonderful place to work. In terms of the front office people, if you go to LinkedIn, you'll find this Lehman group of alumni are just loyal as can be, even to today.
Yes, I noticed that.
The issue with Lehman was that I landed in Milan on the Monday that Lehman filed for bankruptcy. I was going on a marketing tour. Now, I knew Lehman was in trouble. That was the subject on everybody's lips, and I was hitting the European markets. While I was in the air, it became clear that Lehman, I landed, Bernstein set up an 1,100 client conference call. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, the rest of the street is burning, so none of the equity analysts could talk, save me, which was a wonderful thing to work at Bernstein at that moment. So I'm on the call. What was the message that came from all of those 1,100 clients? It was huge fear. Why did the Fed allow it to go? So there was amazement, there was fear, there was disbelief, and who held Lehman exposure was the question. And that explains what happened.
Geithner, Paulsner, Bernanke, were they wrong?
Terribly wrong.
Should they have come in like Bear Stearns?
They didn't have to save the Lehman equity holders, but they needed to make it less of a crisis, because if I don't know whether you had Lehman exposure, am I going to lend you money? No. Mm-hmm. And it was that uncertainty that caused everybody to pull in. They pulled in their financing, and it led to the crisis that occurred later. We have a recent book that came out. And the book was by Professor Ball, who makes the argument that the Fed had the power to save Lehman. But whether they had the power or not is not really the issue. The issue is, should they have? And they should have. They would have made it a much softer crisis. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to save the people.